All right, today we're going to demystify a really powerful tool that global companies use to navigate financial storms. It's called hedge accounting, and it's basically a specific set of rules that helps them manage and report on major risks, which in turn gives us a much clearer picture of their financial health.
So let's dive right in. I want you to imagine for a second that you're running a massive international company. Maybe you're buying raw materials in Japanese yen, but you're selling your finished products in euros. How on earth do you protect your profits from those wild, totally unpredictable swings in currency rates or commodity prices?
And that right there is the core problem. These unpredictable markets can make a company's financial reports look like an absolute roller coaster. You could have a perfectly healthy, thriving business, but the accounting shows these massive peaks and valleys. It makes it incredibly difficult for investors, for analysts, for anyone really, to see what the company's true performance looks like.
So, how do accountants fix this reporting chaos? Well, they use a special tool that basically turns all this volatility into a simple, elegant matching game. And that tool, as you probably guessed, is called hedge accounting.
So what is it exactly? Well, think of it this way. Hedge accounting is what lets a company report a risk and its protection, its hedge, at the exact same time. The whole goal here is to show the real story of how a company is managing its risks. It strips away all that random noise from the market so we can see the true economic picture underneath.
Okay, so check this out. Without hedge accounting, you get this huge timing mismatch. You might have a gain on your protective hedge showing up in January's report, but the actual business loss it was meant to cover doesn't pop up until March. The result? You guessed it, volatile, super confusing earnings. But with hedge accounting, it's all about that matching principle. The gain and the loss get reported together in the same period, which gives everyone a much smoother and, frankly, a more accurate picture of performance.
To really get how this matching works, we need to understand the two key players in any hedging relationship. Let's call them the hedging pair.
First up, you've got the hedged item. This is literally just the thing you're trying to protect. It could be future revenue from your sales in Europe, which is exposed to those crazy euro to dollar exchange rate swings. Or it could even be a warehouse full of coffee beans whose value could totally plummet if market prices suddenly change.
And on the other side of the pair, you have the hedging instrument. Think of this as your financial shield. This is a tool, usually some kind of financial contract, that's specifically designed to move in the opposite direction of your risk. So if the value of your European sales goes down because the euro weakens, your hedging instrument is designed to go up in value, perfectly offsetting that loss on paper. Pretty clever, right? But, and this is a big but, you can't just use anything as your shield. The rulebook, IAS 39, is very clear about what qualifies. It's usually a derivative, something like a forward contract or a swap. Or, in the very specific case of hedging foreign currency risk, it can be a non-derivative financial instrument. But what's absolutely off-limits? A company cannot use its own shares or other equity instruments. The protection has to come from an outside party.
Okay, so we've got our item at risk, and we've got our financial shield. Now let's look at the three main strategies, or you could even say the three flavors of hedging that the standard allows.
The standard actually lays out three distinct types. First up is the fair value hedge. The best analogy for this is like insuring a house you already own against a drop in its market value. Simple. Second, you have the cash flow hedge. This one is like locking in a flight price today for a trip you're planning to take in 6 months. And third, there's the net investment hedge, which, as the name suggests, is specifically for protecting the value of your investment in an overseas subsidiary from those pesky currency swings.
Now, as you can probably guess, this isn't a free-for-all. Companies can't just use these special rules whenever they feel like it. The standards are incredibly strict and lay out 5 golden rules that absolutely must be met to qualify.
And the standard itself, right there in paragraph 88, could not be more direct about this. It states that a relationship qualifies if and only if all of the following conditions are met. I mean, there's no wiggle room there. You have to tick every single one of these boxes to get that special accounting treatment.
So this 5-step checklist is absolutely crucial. You can't just decide to hedge something after the fact. It requires formal documentation right from the very beginning. The hedge also has to be proven to be highly effective. I mean, it actually has to work. You can't just hedge a wild guess either. That future transaction has to be highly probable. Both the risk and the hedge must be reliably measured. And finally, this isn't a set it and forget it kind of thing. It requires ongoing assessment to make sure the hedge is still doing its job. So, when you boil it all down, what's the big takeaway here? Hedge accounting isn't some magic wand that makes financial risk disappear. Not at all. It's all about accurately reporting how that risk is being actively managed. It provides a clearer, more faithful picture of a company's financial health and its proactive strategies.
And that really leaves us with one final thought to chew on. The next time you're reading a company's annual report and you see the word hedging, are you going to see it as just some complex, opaque financial tactic, or will you see it for what it truly is? A simple and actually very smart story of a company actively managing its exposure in a volatile world. Because that shift in perspective, well, that's everything.